Hey, everybody, it's Dr. John Shirk, and it is Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock Central, and that makes this brown bag lunch, where I bring you all manner of ideas and tactics and strategies to, as a technician, an air conditioning technician, get to thriving, or to help someone you love get to thriving. So here's what we're going to talk about today. The one thing that techs always need in order to thrive. I'm dedicating this specifically to you guys, you techs. So listen. The one thing you need, it's a mindset of sowing and reaping. Okay. It's a mindset of sowing and reaping. So, we talk about the 7 areas where if you've got something good going on, you're going to be thriving. If you don't, you won't be thriving there. That's maybe where you need to give some attention to yourself. So, for example, one area where we thrive is if we have meaning we're contributing to something greater than yourself. We've talked about this before on Brown Bag Lunch. Now, what is the reality? Well, you don't go from deciding, yes, I'm going to do that, to actually experiencing this in one step. You've got to invest yourself in a way that you're sowing into a group or to someone. It could be your family. It could be something church related. It could be just something greater than you. And it's as the reaping happens that you feel the meaning. Okay. So the sowing and reaping dynamic is there in meaning. When we talk about accomplishment, which is seeing outcomes directly produced by your knowledge, skills, and abilities. Okay. What if you're accomplishing something? Again, you don't just do that. You have to sow and then reap in order to experience the value of accomplishment. Now, everybody needs to feel, especially some kinds of progress or moving forward just in life with accomplishments. However, for those of you who are younger men, this becomes a very important one, because part of male mental and emotional development requires having some kind of an achievement that you're kind of staking in the ground and saying, I did that. For thousands of years, men have, gone out on the hunt, and a young man killed a warthog or whatever. And those dynamics are still real, where you get social feedback that, yes, you did accomplish this thing. So in either case, whether it's bigger or more generic, you have to sow and then reap. How about a feeling of personal security? This is where your freedom from a fight or flight response. It's the opposite of bad stress. So sowing and reaping. If you want this, you're going to have to do things like invest in getting out of debt. That's part of security. You're going to have to invest in putting money into the bank. That's part of security. You're going to also have to, in order to avoid fight or flight responses, you're going to have to find a way out of some relationships with people who kind of get off on broadsiding you and shocking you or provoking you or whatever into that space. If you want to get that out of your life, you got to sow and then you can reap. How about your health? This one's obvious enough. Health, our definition of health that's thriving is having at least enough energy and physical capacity for all aspects of my life, right? So how do you get there? Diet, exercise, get your sleep right. This is a big one, y'all. Every time someone asks me, where should I get started? I always say sleep. You know why? Because while you're doing it, you're sleeping. It's the easiest one. Okay. So get your sleep study, get a CPAP, whatever you have to do so that your sleep gets right. And then build off of that. It's sowing and it's reaping. Another one is engagement. This is where we talk about routinely engaging in work or tasks with total focus and a feeling of timelessness, feeling very skilled and knowledgeable, where this is where if you get a lot of this, you go to work and you feel like you're doing what you do best every day. And that pleasure that comes from being good at something and doing it, that's a big source of happiness and thriving. So guess what? No one starts out good at anything. So if you want to have this enjoyment, you have to go to work learning, realizing there's reps you have to go through. There's mistakes you're probably going to have to make. It won't feel good at first, but once you get better at it, then you can sow, and you have sown, and then reap the pleasure of engagement. Okay. The joy, the thriving of engagement. 6, the relationships. In our definition of thriving in relationships is having all the love and companionship and ISO time that you need without excessive sacrifice or compromise. Okay. Here again, you don't have automatic good relationships. It doesn't work that way. You've got to take time with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends, with your coworkers, whatever, wherever these relationships are at, there's a sowing and a reaping involved so that you can, eventually get out of that relationship all of the love and respect and companionship that you want. And then lastly is delight. This is where we talk about, and this is the one I want to talk about the most, because this is where fun and pleasure, you just experience fun and pleasure from very simple to very refined. And there's a split, a Y in the road that has to do with gaining delight from more or gaining delight from better. And, depending on where you are right now financially, your options for more may be limited or maybe not. But the people who thrive with delight, they develop a palate for music, maybe great beer, maybe, one of the versions of this is just the delight in when you're doing your work. Engagement has been you're doing what you do best. Delight is feeling the pleasure of better tools, better boots, better customers, even, and refining your tastes so that fun and pleasure is not saying, just to take one example, if 2 drinks is great, 4 must be awesome. And if 4 is awesome, 8 must be spectacular. That's trying to experience delight from more. As opposed to, I know a few techs who do this. They really like to try craft beers and really kind of get a taste for certain craft beers. Great. The goal there is to develop your palate, regardless of whatever the thing is. Classically, this is like people getting a taste for art, but it doesn't have to be things like, as foo-foo as that. It's just a matter of you yourself saying, what do I like? And psychologically, it takes you out of survival mode and puts you into a place where you can look forward to something you're doing on Friday night because you get to delight in it because you've sown and reaped on your palate so that you can go enjoy something you could not have enjoyed previously. Okay. So those are our big 7. We've talked about them before, and you'll hear me talk about them again. Meaning, accomplishment, there's status in there. There's a lot of things in there. Meaning, accomplishment, security, health, engagement, relationships, and delight. But to get to each of those, there's a sowing and a reaping process. And so, as I've talked to some of you after some of these talks, usually one of these kind of jumps out as like, that's the one, like it's health or it's meaning or it's engagement or it's relationships or whatever. Delight is one that should jump out at you if you're just getting worn out by trying to find delight in more. But whichever one jumps out at you, just realize there's a sowing and a reaping process. And it's really kind of the only way life works. So you might as well get started. You could say, well, I don't want to sow. I just want to reap. That doesn't really work. That doesn't really happen. Not in this stuff. Even if you won the lottery tomorrow and you had a bunch of cash, you couldn't enjoy it until you develop your ability to do it. Okay. So if you want to build a thriving life and you want to kind of maximize the possibilities for yourself in any of these areas, accomplishment, engagement, health, any of them, just realize there's a sowing and then there's a reaping. And if you put in the sowing, odds are you're going to reap thriving in that area. Okay. Now listen, I'm Dr. John Shirk. If you're not there yet, please check out my podcast, HVAC Joy Lab. We're still early in the process. We're, I think, a dozen episodes in. We have some great stuff on there. I'm feeling the quality of them increasing as we go. And so I want to make sure you check it out. It's on Apple Podcast as well as Spotify. Again, I'm Dr. John Shirk, and this has been Brown Bag Lunch, and we will see you next week.